If it doesn't go this way, then I'm going to feel this way. And so I want to talk to you about some habits that we have, including the if-then habit that just creates stress for us. And it doesn't actually change the outcomes. It just gives us more reason to be stressed out. And also noticing the habit of giving yourself reasons to be stressed out versus with surrendering, allowing yourself to be at rest, to be at peace. And that's really the biggest difference. Welcome to Garner Growth. Welcome to Garner Growth. What's up, fam? Welcome to another episode of Garner Growth. Today I'm going to talk about the art of surrendering. And surrendering is a practice that I've been really implementing hard this year. Every year I have a theme, just one word theme. One year was consistency. One year it was creativity. This year it was surrender. And the reason it was surrender was because I noticed a lot of areas in my life where I needed to practice not controlling things. Because when you try to control everything, it's stressful. You create stress for yourself because you're like, okay, if it doesn't go this way, then I'm going to feel this way. And so I want to talk to you about some habits that we have, including the if-then habit that just creates stress for us. And it doesn't actually change the outcomes. It just gives us more reason to be stressed out. And also noticing the habit of giving yourself reasons to be stressed out versus with surrendering, allowing yourself to be at rest, to be at peace. And that's really the biggest difference. And so I want to talk about the if-then thing first, because the if-then is creating conditions. And a condition is, if this doesn't happen, then I'm going to feel this way. If it doesn't go this way, then I'm going to react this way. And so you've kind of like pre-prescribed your like negative reactions or your inability to deal with the outcome already with these conditions. It's like with relationships is really popular, really easy to understand with relationships, where if he don't call me by this time, I'm going to know that he's not serious about me, right? Meanwhile, you have no idea why he didn't call you at that time. And you just created this condition to be upset. And so let's say that happens, you don't get the call. Now you're upset. Come to find out something happened where he wasn't able to call you. That was totally understandable. And now you're just like feeling like a dummy. And so those are like in small ways, we do that all the time. If I don't make it to this meeting on time, then I'm going to be late. I'm going to be this, and this is going to happen. And we kind of have this snowball effect of negative things that are going to happen if this one thing doesn't come to pass. And so if then are really, really dangerous at times, you know? And so if you're aware of those, how you create those conditions, which they're real subtle, you know, you might not even use the words if then, because I wasn't really aware of it, but I'm like, I'm creating conditions where I already have like a reaction for something that hasn't even happened yet. And so what I'm doing is now I'm living in the future. And that's like the anxiety of the future, the insecurity. And with control, the reason we have control is because we are trying to create some kind of predictability, which gives us security in knowing, whereas insecurity can give you more stress, right? It gives you anxiety. You don't know what's going to happen. And so instead of dealing with that insecurity, uncertainty, you're going to create an outcome that is highly likely or that you're perpetuating based off of how you're perceiving something already. So with the control is a way that we protect ourselves a lot of times. It could be a trauma response where you've been through a lot of struggle. You've been through things that have really been really painful, have been hurtful. And so you've learned to protect yourself in ways where you prepare for the worst. And in your habit to prepare for the worst, you're creating these conditions just so you can be prepared. And it's a way of protecting yourself. So it's not the intention behind it is not bad. And that's really important to acknowledge too, is we have a need to protect ourselves. Like we have a need to learn from our mistakes or learn from our experiences. But being aware of what you're learning from your experiences, and then sometimes how you're just reacting. And those are called trauma responses. You have those trauma responses where we're reacting from a place of pain and fear of it happening again. And you're not really thinking about what did I learn from this experience? What did I take away in a way that builds me up, in a way that empowers me? Instead, you're like, I never want to feel that pain again. I never want to be put in that situation again. And so I'm going to control what's happening so that I can not get to that place again. It's really natural to do that. It's really natural to want to protect yourself from being hurt again. And so acknowledge that when you notice yourself doing those things, when you do have trauma responses, acknowledge it, that you're trying to protect yourself and that you love yourself. So yeah, I'm gonna try to protect myself. Just like if there was, if it's a child, if it's somebody innocent that I care about or love, I want to protect them, and you're really trying to protect yourself, maybe even that your younger self who didn't get that protection and who now you're kind of like hyper vigilant about it as an adult to the point where you're being smothering. You're smothering your adult self from experiencing a fuller life with all this control. And so surrendering is something that you can learn to do better and better, because it really has to do with your perception about things, how your body naturally or automatically reacts to things. And the first step of it really is awareness. You got to be aware of, okay, this is how I'm reacting to this. Physically, this is how I'm reacting. I feel it in my body here, here, here. I'm tensing up here. My body language is expressing it in this way. And mentally, I'm noticing a repetition of certain thoughts that are building up my defenses. And thoughts are the building blocks of emotions. They're like the ingredients that create a recipe for a certain emotion. So before you were sad, right? Before you were upset, you had thoughts and ideas and beliefs that kept coming around, kept going through your head and mixed together and created this recipe for this sadness that you feel now. If you didn't have those thoughts, if those thoughts were different, if they were more empowering, more reassuring, more positive, your mood would not be sadness, because those are not the ingredients for sadness. And so as you're going through these experiences, look at the ingredients that you are gathering up. Before you cook something, I'm about to cook some cookies. I'm gonna go get my flour, my salt, chocolate chips. You go gather your ingredients, right? And when you go through circumstances and you start to develop these repetitive thoughts, that's you gathering ingredients. And before you know it, you're in this mood. So that was the recipe. You gathered those ingredients, you put them together, and you cooked up this sadness. You cooked up this anger. You cooked up this frustration. And it's not just not to say that you are doing it, on purpose, so it's any blame to it. That's just how we work. But knowing how we work, you can say, okay, I'm going to go gather some different ingredients because I know what recipe I'm making right now. I'm making anger. So let me go get switch those ingredients out for something that's more like reassurance, reminding myself that I'm okay. Focusing on the positives of the situation versus the negative ones, because they're always both there. In any situation you're in, there's going to be something that's going to be hurtful to focus on, frustrating, all those things that don't feel good. And there's also going to be at the same time something positive, something uplifting, something that emotes gratitude in you to focus on. They're always there at the same time. And so you have a choice of where you want to put your attention, and wherever you choose to put your attention is where you're going to have the most growth. It's like, you nourish your emotions with thoughts, right? And so if you're going to nourish a more positive experience or a more growing experience, something that's empowering to you, then you just want to give that more attention. But if without that awareness, we subconsciously automatically put our attention on the negatives because we're trying to protect ourselves and we're trying to prevent, the worst from happening. So we put a lot of attention on that. And we think that by continuously repeating these negative thoughts, these scenarios, by repeating them over and over again, that we're solving something. You ain't solving nothing. You're just stirring up an emotion. And then once you stir that emotion up, now you got to deal with that. And that could be stopping you from being productive, from being engaged in your life, from really just enjoying the moment that you're in, enjoying what you do have, the people around you, really taking advantage of your resources and your connections. You forget that you have friends when you're stuck in this state of loneliness and you're stuck in this state of lack. You forget that you have people that you could talk to, But once you get out of that mindset, or you find you find yourself in a place of not focusing on that, you're like, oh, let me call my friend, this person. Let me go see how they're doing. And your solutions to your problems, they just open up so much more once you get out of this negative thought storm. And I'm not saying that those things are not going to happen. Sometimes you just get into this negative thought storm and it's just hard to get out. But what you can do is not stay there as long as you used to. And I think that's a big step. And it's really empowering to know that, yeah, things happen, shit happens, and you're going to get into states where you just feel that grief. And it's important for you to feel it and to not try to make it do something else. And that brings me back to surrender. So surrendering not only has to do with being positive. Surrendering in itself is positive because you're not fighting anything. You're not fighting sadness. You're not fighting the situation. You're not fighting what somebody else is doing that you're trying to control. You just are accepting it. And in that state of surrender, you just kind of like let go and relax. And that in itself is a positive thing. But you could surrender to sadness. You could surrender to grief. And it feels like a negative thing, right? Grief doesn't feel like something you want to do. But by surrendering to it, allowing it to be, it can move. And like everything, it moves on. It changes. The longer that you fight it and you put tension and compress yourself around it with resistance, it kind of contains it more. You're not giving it space to move and to vibrate and to change its vibration. You're holding it in this space. You're putting so much attention onto it. You're not allowing it to change. And so that's what surrender does. Surrender says, I'm gonna let you be here, grief. All right, let's feel you. How does it feel in my body? All right, I'm gonna release the tension I have around trying to feel it. I'm gonna release the tension around stop trying to cry. I'm gonna actually let myself cry. I'm going to let out frustration in a safe space, of course. We don't want to just let out frustration on others, but I'm gonna let out my frustration. I'm gonna feel it. I'm gonna feel my anxiety. And I'm not gonna try to make it be peace. But I can give myself peace. I can be at peace automatically by surrendering to whatever is and saying it's okay for it to be that. And so surrender and acceptance kind of go hand in hand in this way. And it's twofold. It's physical and it's also mental, I guess emotional too. Because when you surrender mentally, you're not going to fight these thoughts. You're not going to keep also recycling them and letting them go around and around in circles. And so what you do when you surrender a thought is you acknowledge it. When you don't acknowledge it, that's when you're kind of like just cycling it around because you think that you keep rotating it, it's going to change. You think you're going to spin it out or learn something about it or resolve something. But if you just acknowledge it for what it is, and you're like, oh, I'm over here just thinking all these like terrible scenarios. I'm over here thinking of, the worst possible outcome so that I can prepare myself for it. And maybe the blow will be less hard. The blow will not hurt as much because I've thought about it 1,000 times and now I'm prepared for it. And when you do that, you kind of just like keep yourself in that state longer. But by acknowledging it and saying, okay, I'm thinking these thoughts because I'm trying to protect myself. And what am I trying to protect myself from? From pain, from hurt. Like, okay, I understand that. I get that. I understand why I'm thinking this way. And if you try this thing, I want you to try this next time you have a thought storm where they're just kind of like going and going, is what you do is you separate yourself from the thought. You're not actually your thoughts. You're observing them. You're listening to them. You're like listening to a song, listening to music. If you stare at your next thought and say, okay, what you gonna be next? Like, what's gonna come next? You'll actually notice that there's going to be a delay in that thought stream. It'll actually stop. It'll pause on you because now your attention is on observing. So if those thought streams pause when you start observing consciously, then it lets you know that that's not you. You are separate from your thoughts and you are able to disconnect from the stream. You don't have to be dragged through your mind all day with these thoughts. And I want you to give it a try. It's really simple. Just pretend like you're staring at your next thought, like waiting for it to come. Like you waiting for this thought at the door. Like it's coming and you want to see what it has to say. And when you do that, you notice like a pause. And you could do that longer and longer. The pause gets longer. And it's a practice that just allows you to realize that you have the ability to not be dragged, and that you can just separate, and also know that it's not reality. Thoughts are not reality. Just like, we watch whatever's on the screen. It's not reality. It's an emanation, like it's a projection of what's coming. It's coming through the screen as a projection, right? And going to our eyes. Whatever goes into our eyes, whatever hits our lens, the light that hits our lens is actually a projection. And it actually enters our eye upside down, just like, on a projecting screen. And so it's really, when you look at it that way, you can start to connect with what your mind actually is, which is like a receptor. It's a pure consciousness. It's like, I think of it as a computer with a blank hard drive. And we decide, sometimes mostly not consciously, but we decide what gets downloaded on that hard drive, what software systems we're going to run, and what programs we're going to run, right? What apps you want on that hard drive. But it's a blank hard drive. And if you can realize you are the hard drive and you're not the software, then it really empowers you to be like, okay, I get to actually choose what's going on my shit, And so it gives you like this like different perspective on how you're going to handle these thought storms when you get into them, and also be able to redirect and change what the program is. So maybe the program right now is anxiety, is stress around this thing, it's stress around this relationship, or it's just, the certain emotion. Okay. Instead of that, like, I don't want to put all my energy into that and just like, I want to spend my day worrying about that. I actually want to accomplish this. I want to see myself, doing this. And so how can I put those kinds of ideas and thoughts in my mind, and really like change my programming so that I'm not wasting my time just like in my head, entertaining things that I actually don't want, and that's just like a way of really engaging with life in an authentic way. Because if we're not our thoughts and we don't realize that we're not, and we think that we are, then what we're living is a projection. It's not really life. I think real life is understanding that you are a conscious being, and you have this body, that you can do a lot of things with, but it's also like an instrument. And it's like, if you don't know how to play that instrument, and you just over here just like allowing just any kind of noise to come out, you don't feel like you're making music with life. And we all have this deep desire for harmony and to make music with life. And that in biology is called homeostasis. So homeostasis is where our body is constantly wanting to go back to balance. Just like if you get a cut, if I get a bruise, my body's going to automatically start to heal. It's going to send fluid there. It's going to send blood there. It's going to start sending cells there to start tissue repair, right? So that's homeostasis. That's our body saying, like, whenever there's something that's off, I'm going to try to make it back to how it should be, repair it. If it wasn't that way, if we weren't naturally always trying to go back to a state of balance, then when you get injured, when you get cut, it would stay. It would just stay open, and, you would get infections, it would bleed out. And an infection, right, is like, even with our immunity, like our immune system is going to fight infections until it's able to resolve it and get back to a balanced state. If not, we would die of infections. So there's evidence all over the place in your daily life and how we work that you see that you're always naturally going to a state of balance. And the more that we can put ourselves in harmony with that balance, spiritually, mentally, physically, finding harmony and being in alignment, then things will just start to flow a lot easier. And you won't be fighting yourself to just live like a life that feels good. That's like the basic, like we just want to live a life that feels good. But we always find that we're resisting, and we're not surrendering, and we're not allowing balance to just happen and flow through us. And we think we have to force it. And part of the way we think we have to force that balance is through control and through not surrendering. So I want you to try that this week, is finding opportunities, which is not hard to do, where you are resisting, you're not surrendering. You might be trying to control an outcome. It could be trying to control the outcome of a relationship, which is really common. It can be creating conditions around, if this person says this or does this, then it's this, or then I'm going to do this. And you are like, when we have those fights in our head with somebody where it's like, if they say this to me, I'm gonna say this. And you kind of have a comeback already. Or you have like, if she does this, I'm not coming to work on Sunday. And you have this premeditated argument and nothing has even happened yet. And so we do that like in little small ways every day in our lives where we have fights within ourselves for things that haven't even happened yet. And that's control. That's resistance. And what you can do is look at those as opportunities to practice surrender. You might not feel like you did it good or that it worked, but you're practicing it. You're getting better at it. And the evidence that you're getting better at it is that you feel more accepting of what is. You feel like, okay, I can allow this to be. Like, I don't have to do anything about this. I don't have to actually like have a consequence, react to this. I don't have to react to this. I can just let it be. That's surrender. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunities to surrender, and you just find one and you start implementing what works for you. And especially if there's a main area that you want to work on, if it's like anxiety in relationships, which is really common, it's anxiety around not having, income or a job, then focus on that one area and be aware. Your intention is to just be aware, and then you'll start finding naturally opportunities for you to surrender will pop up. As long as you say, I want to be aware of this, I'm going to notice it more, you'll feel it and you'll see that opportunity pop up for you. And every time that happens is an opportunity for you to practice surrendering. All right. Thank y'all for watching. Let me know in the comments how you felt about this video. Any feedback you want to share with the community about surrendering, what works for you, any gratitudes, just put them in those comments. It helps everybody. It helps me, and it helps everybody who is interested in personal growth and doing it in a light way, still loving ourselves and having fun while we continue to grow and experience life to its fullest. All right. Like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you next time.
Like, subscribe, share the growth.
If you are not ready for the day, it cannot always be night.